Hey folks, Mark here for another vinyl update. Now this one's not going to be about new vinyl because I haven't bought much new vinyl. I'm still going through things I bought last Christmas and even before then. So what I decided to do was show you some of my favorite 12-inch singles. I'm a huge fan of the format. I love albums, much as the next person behind me. You see lots of albums, but there's also a lot of 12-inch singles in there. I always feel like that's a chance for a song to, for lack of a better word, breathe more. I often think sometimes songs benefit from the 12-inch format, and some songs don't. Some songs need to be left alone. They don't need a remix to make them better. But I'm going to spotlight here records that have benefited, in my opinion, from the 12-inch mix. A lot of these from the 80s, a couple from the 90s as well. So I'm going to divide them up. Half of these are going to be songs that I feel like their extended mix is the definitive mix, almost like the album version and 7-inch version were too short or that they were edited. And then the other half of these are going to be records that benefited from a particular remix. All right? So the first one I'm going to show is Tom Verlaine, guitarist of Television. He put out this single, 5 Miles of You, in 1984 from his cover album, and I bought that upon seeing the video on MTV back then and loved it. But when I found the 12-inch, I discovered that it goes on another minute and a half, and Tom Verlaine's guitar goes even more spirally and is even more beautiful than it is on the album version. So I definitely would suggest, if you can find the extended mix of 5 Miles of You by Tom Verlaine, do find it. It's really terrific. It should be the album version. Here's another one, Brewer, Doot Doot. This is the title track from their 1983 album, and these guys changed their name to Underworld later on in the 1990s and went on to have big dance hits in that decade. But in the 1980s, they were known as Brewer, however you describe or pronounce that name. And this song, Doot Doot's terrific in its own right. Its album version and 45 version is just stunning, I think. It's just gorgeous. But on the 12-inch version, it goes on a couple minutes longer and comes to a very kind of dark conclusion. And I think it's pretty stunning. So its 12-inch mix, I think, is definitely the better of the two from Brewer's Doot Doot. Here's one from a certain ratio, Your Blue Eyes. I've got the album that this comes off of called Good Together, but its 12-inch mix, I think, gets a nice lead in. Its verse and chorus is basically in its instrumental form in the first quarter of the 12-inch, and then it gets into, the regular song. And I just feel like this is a record where its 12-inch version is the definitive version. It's called Your Blue Eyes from a certain ratio from 1989. A lot more pop than their early 80s stuff. Here's another band, great in its 12-inch format, Level 42. I'm a huge fan of this group, especially from the 1980s. Like Depeche Mode, this was a band that always gave you more in their 12-inch singles. They would usually remix their B-side, so it would be extended. And you often got a really different mix. And many times, too, Level 42 would give you even a different verse in the extended mix. It's like they would write another verse for it. So it really seemed like, by the time you got done hearing it, that the album version was a truncated version of the 12-inch. So Hot Water is the first song I heard by Level 42, and if all you know is Something About You, then you really owe it to yourself to, and you like funk, especially, mid-80s Brit funk, then you owe it to yourself to hear some Level 42. Hot Water's great, but its B-side is why I'm showing this. It's an extended version of a song from the album Standing in the Light. It's the title track, Standing in the Light, the extended version. And you do, in fact, get a whole different verse, a whole different breakdown in the middle. It really takes the song somewhere different, and I'm a huge fan of it. And for Level 42, it's quite atmospheric. So Standing in the Light extended mix from Level 42. If you can dig that up, please do. Hot Water ain't so shabby either. The Bolshoi. This is called Away. This is a single they released, I think at the end of '85 is when they put this out. And, its album version is just fine. It's really good. But its 12-inch version gets a lot of breathing room, and it gets a nice build-up and a nice breakdown in the middle. And I really feel like its extended mix is the version that is definitive of this song, Away by the Bolshoi. And the version you want to find is the special mix. I know, could you get more generic? But the special mix of Away by the Bolshoi. Here's a duo from the mid-80s that only did 3 singles. They were called Care. 1984, 83, 84 was their era. It was Ian Brody, who used to produce Echo and the Bunnymen, and later went on to become known as the Lightning Seeds in the late 80s, early 90s, or all through the 90s, as a matter of fact. And he teamed up with another guy named Paul Simpson, who had previously been in Wild Swans and also Teardrop Explodes. And together they did 3 great singles, one called My Boyish Days, another one called Flaming Sword, and this one called Whatever Possessed You. It's just a great 4.5-minute piece of atmospheric British pop from the mid-1980s. I absolutely love this record, probably one of my favorites of all time. They actually did record enough material for an album, but it never did get released until the late 1990s on CD. And I picked it up and discovered a shortened version of this song on there. And when I heard it, I was like, ooh, this sounds like someone took a knife to it and went chopped it all up. It just sounds terrible. This is the one you need, the extended mix of Whatever Possessed You by Care. There's a little better look at the release there. Squidy Petti. Many of you may know them from Perfect Way from 1985. That was a big hit for them here in the States. In the late 70s, they were known as more of a post-punk band, a lot of scratchy guitars. Early 80s, more of a funk act. Mid-80s, a slick dance pop act. And this continues that trend. This came out as the lead track from their 1988 album called Provision. And it features Miles Davis on trumpet. And there's a beautiful trumpet solo from him in the middle that is severely truncated in the album version. So that's why I'm recommending the 12-inch of Oh Patty by Squidy Petti. That is the name of this. It is the extended mix. It was included on the CD, the 12-inch version, and it's pretty stunning. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, and Miles Davis's contribution to this is fully in all its glory and in the 12-inch format. Here's a duo out of Germany called Data, or Data, however you wanted to pronounce them. The 12-inch they put out in 83 called Living Inside Me, and I've heard the album version of it. It feels very short. This 12-inch version, you get a full 5.5-minute, breathing room on this, and it's just a great piece of synth pop from the early 1980s. If you like Depeche Mode, Yazoo, OMD, that kind of thing, then you are going to love this. And one of the guys, Georg Kajanis, worked with Peter Godwin in the early 1980s. You might know him from Images of Heaven. He was also in a band called Sailor during the 1970s. I could have chosen any number of Cabrillo Voltaire 12-inch singles. Boy, they really do shine on the 12-inch format. But this one in particular I love, called Fool's Game. It's known as Sluggin' for Jesus Part 3. Came out in the Les Disques de Crépuscule label in, I believe, 1982. Could be wrong. It might be 1983. But another one, it's a long record. It's about 8 minutes long, but to me it never gets old. It's just a great piece of electronic, subversive sounding electronic music from Cabrillo Voltaire. Definitely pointing in the direction of things like The Crackdown and Code and Microphonies that would come later. Fool's Game, Sluggin' for Jesus Part 3 from Cabrillo Voltaire. Great, great record. Another good one here from The Damned, The Shadow of Love. This was included on the Phantasmagoria album from 1985. A terrific album and a terrific track from the album. Great in its own right, but on its 12-inch pressure mix, it's the pressure mix. In this 12-inch version, it really gets a chance to kind of develop over the course of 6 minutes, and I definitely prefer this over the album version. Kind of a nice little die-cut sleeve there as well with European tour dates from 1985. The Damned, The Shadow of Love. Record I like to pull out every Halloween. It always feels very Halloweenish to me. Another one from a certain ratio, they warrant two. This one's called Knife Slits Water from 1982. Another great just dance track. It's 12 minutes long, but it never wears out its welcome to me. It's just a terrific track. It opens up kind of almost with an industrial vibe to it, but then a voice whispers, "Take a chance and dance." And as soon as it does, the thing explodes into just a massive funk workout. The bass guitar on this is just amazing. Knife Slits Water, the 12-inch mix from a certain ratio. There's another mix of this on the back called Kether Hot Knives that's also quite good. Here's another one from 1983. This is called Unless by the Pale Fountains. And normally the Pale Fountains are more of a jangly guitar act with a lot of trumpet in their music. They did 2 albums in the early 1980s, and this is from the first one, the first album called Pacific Street. and this is called Unless, but this is a lot more synth-oriented, and in its 12-inch version, this gets a full 6 minutes to develop, and I feel like it needs all 6 minutes to develop. Almost like OMD's Souvenir, it's very atmospheric, piece of synth-oriented pop from 1983, The Pale Fountains, Unless. Find the long extended mix. And then you probably all know the cult She Sells Sanctuary. If you don't, go YouTube it right now. This is a terrific song. And I always felt like the album version of the song was a little short. I like the long version of this. This was the first version I heard, the long version. And I don't know, it opens up with Ian Astbury's howling and kicks into the song you all know, I'm sure. And needs its full 6 minutes. I feel like if it's any shorter than that, it's too short. She Sells Sanctuary by the Cult. Almost couldn't pronounce that. All right, here's a few more. Now these are 12 inches I like because of the actual mix that is on the 12-inch mix. I feel like whoever did the remixes on these really did the song justice, better than the album version. We'll start with this act called AIM, trip-hop act out of the UK from the late 1990s, early 2000s. And this 12-inch is called Sail, and it was remixed by Ray and Christian, and it's dripping with atmosphere. Very, I don't know, very haunting, very kind of a little bit sad sounding, but it's remixed by Ray and Christian, blows the regular album version away. Look for the Ray and Christian remix of Sail by AIM. I bought this based on the cover. Never even heard of AIM until I bought this record, but I just love the sleeve. I mean, it just tells me right away this is going to be a good record. So find that one. Here's another good one. Corner Shop. Love this band. They keep releasing great records, even still, I think. And in the mid-1990s, they really found their footing, especially with the album Woman's Gotta Have It in 1995. And this is a single from it called Wog. And it really, I think the 12-inch mix of it on here is amazing. It's by Witchman. And it's 15 minutes long, and you may think, oh, 15 minutes? No, no, no. This needs all 15 minutes to happen. I never get sick of it. Corner Shop, Wog. The Witchman remix. If you can dig this up, please do. This came out domestically over here in the U.S. on Warner's, so shouldn't have too hard of a time finding it. Here's a great 12-inch from Mark Almond. He put this out from his, I forget the name of the album this came from, Enchanted, I believe. And this came out around 1991, and it's Waifs and Strays is the name of it. And it's almost like a Soft Cell reunion for 1991. It's a Mark Almond solo record remixed by The Grid, who, if you don't know The Grid, it's Dave Ball, who was one half of Soft Cell. Mark Almond used to be half of as well. So this is just a really great 12-inch mix. If you can find The Grid remix of Waifs and Strays, I think it blows the album version away. It just really comes to life, has a nice dark synth lead to it, and I think it's pretty darn amazing. Mark Almond, Waifs and Strays. Here's a great one, Simple Minds, Speed Your Love to Me. All the 12-inch mixes, I think, from the 1984 album Sparkle in the Rain were amazing, but this one is my particular favorite. Speed Your Love to Me is just got some fantastic guitar work by Charlie Burchill. I think just an amazing guitarist. I thought Simple Minds could do no wrong up to this point. Went a little off of them after this album, but boy, I sure do love Sparkle in the Rain and everything before it. And this 12-inch mix in particular is just amazing. Speed Your Love to Me. Find it. About 8 minutes long. Kirsty MacColl. She put out a 12-inch in 1985 called Hes On The Beach. Very hard song to find. She doesn't include that on many compilations. Rest in peace, Kirsty MacColl. She's been departed for quite some time now. Was killed in an accident in Mexico, I believe, at the tail end of the 1990s. But I'm a huge fan of her, and this 12-inch, Hes On The Beach, it's a really great song, but the 12-inch mix of this is amazing. It's got some great guitar work that would make U2's The Edge envious. I mean, it's just amazing. Cross the Edge with Johnny Marr, and you've got a really good idea of just how great the guitar work is on this record, especially the 12-inch extended mix. This came out in Stiff in 1985. Very hard record to find, but if you can dig it up, please do. Hes On The Beach by Kirsty MacColl, the extended mix. OMD, this is a 12-inch they did from 1980, I believe it came out at the end of 85. Yeah. This came out from the Crush album, La Femme Accident. And the 12-inch version of this is just amazing. I love it. The 7-inch version is slow, atmospheric waltz. The 12-inch version is an up-tempo stomp and dance track. And it's got lots more to it than the album version. So if all you know is the album version of La Femme Accident by OMD, you owe it to yourself to go find the 12-inch mix, because it's a complete overhaul. And this was a limited version that came with a free 12-inch, and also sort of the artwork from the Crush album here in the middle. So OMD, La Femme Accident. Here's another great one from the Psychedelic Furs, the Heaven 12-inch, which is just an extended mix. Not bad, but nothing too special. But its flip side, this is from 1984, is Heartbeat, the New York City remix. Now this can also be found on the US 12-inch of The Ghost in You. But in the UK, it was on the Heaven 12-inch. Heartbeat is a great song on the album. I love it. It's on Mirror Moves from 1984, but you listen to the 12-inch mix of this, again, a complete overhaul. Same goes with ABC's Be Near Me. Great track. I love it. I love ABC. But the 12-inch mix of Be Near Me is where it's at. I mean, nothing beats it, in my opinion. When I first started going to nightclubs around in 1985, I used to hear this out, and it holds a special memory for me. So, never gotten sick of it my whole life. ABC, Be Near Me. And the 12-inch mix you want to find, there's probably several out there. The one you want to find is the Munich Disco Mix. That's what this is, the Munich Disco Mix of ABC. A couple more to show you here. Depeche Mode, Get the Balance Right, the combination mix. Great song, love the 7-inch version, just fine. But the 12-inch version of this I think is especially great. I don't know why I think so, I just do. It's Depeche Mode 12-inches, as most of you know, are really where it's at with the band. They always gave you a lot of bang for your buck, and I think the combination mix of this song, Get the Balance Right, is really, really terrific. From 1983, Depeche Mode. Eric B. and Rakim, rap duo from the late 1980s, and this 12-inch was called Move the Crowd. Now, this wasn't the reason that most people bought this 12-inch, and it wasn't the reason I bought it. The reason I bought it was because of its B-side, which was the Paid in Full Cold Cut remix. See if you can see that a little closer there. The name of the remix is actually 7 Minutes of Madness, the Cold Cut Remix. This thing is amazing. This was at the dawn of the sampling era in 1987. And this really, I believe 87 is when this came out, yeah. Right around the time of Pump Up the Volume. This was huge in the clubs, and I thought it was just a great listening record in and of itself. Paid in Full by Eric B. and Rakim, the Cold Cut Remix. Find that. Two more to show. Associates, I'm a huge fan of theirs. Not as big a fan after the initial 3 albums. They were originally a duo of Billy McKenzie on vocals and Alan Rankin. In 1982, they split up, and Billy McKenzie kept the name The Associates and continued in a more synth-pop direction. With, you know, most of it I liked, but I really enjoyed the 12-inch mix he did of Heart of Glass. Yes, the Blondie song. He released this in 1988. And there were 2 12-inches. There was a first 12-inch that came out, which was okay. And then this one came out right afterward. It was a limited 12-inch, the Temperament Mix. Yep, with 3D glasses. Complete with 3D glasses. And I just thought this was an amazing 12-inch mix. It blew the album version, or the 7-inch version, away completely. Synth pop, just a really good club mix of it. But again, bursting with personality, bursting with feeling. I think it, in my opinion, gives Debbie Harry's version even a run for its money. I love this in its own way. And last but not least, an Italian group called Satu Javu. I believe that's how you pronounce their name. Satu Javu? Never really knew. Have in Mind is a record they put out in 1988, and this is kind of the missing link between Camouflage, Erasure, Depeche Mode, any of the stuff from the late 1980s that was like Euro synth pop. If you're into any of that stuff, you will definitely love Satu Javu if you haven't heard of them already. They had a 12-inch in 1987 called Situations, which was great. And they followed it up with this one called Have in Mind. Just a great song. And its album version is good, but the 12-inch version is much better. It just gets time to develop and expand and just be brilliant. So there you go. 25 of my favorite 12-inch singles. I'm sure I'll do another volume of this. I didn't get very far in my collection before I found 25 great ones. So definitely there's more to show, but I wanted to show these because I'm quite passionate about them and love them. And if you've got some you want to show, some of your favorite 12-inch mixes, bring them on. Would love to see them. So until later, talk to you soon. Keep the vinyl spinning.